going to begin, and throughout this entire live, we're just going to ask if everyone can just take down notes, questions, stories. We're going to have a particular time at the end of this to make sure that we do the best we can to answer things, or if you need to let anything out, by all means, this is going to be a good experience. So first of all, this is the fabulous Ciana. She is not only an amazing belly dancer, and that's how I've known her for many years, but she's also for many years been a Pilates instructor, a functional movement coach. So she is just like a jack of all trades and many of the things in the health space as well. So thank you for joining us.
Yes, I'm excited. We have a lot of good conversations. I think it's perfect to go on a live together. We have good banter. We have good.
Yeah. I think a lot of what prompted this was I personally have experienced some interesting moments of where it seems like in our industry, and especially in the current environment since COVID, I feel like things have almost looked disrespectful online, and at times, and there's people that are awesome, and there's also tends to be maybe like a sense of where you get situations where a person or a group may attack someone, but they just are kind of reacting out of their own traumas, fears, assumptions, rather than perhaps getting to the root of the issue directly with the person. So today's discussion, we're going to cover a lot of different things, but mainly it is about disagreements versus disrespect, which a lot of people were really excited about when we posted the flyer online. And I think one of the perfect ways to start it, before I kind of ask you a bunch of questions, is basically just going over what is a disagreement. And also, I just love to even mention the word debate. So debate, a lot of times we'll see that on news. It's like very formal. It's a news type of productions or broadcasts. It's a like, how do you say in English? A political event, you know, where you're going to have lots of people that are going to be arguing a different side to or for something, and come up, and at the end of it, of the debate, you'll either choose a side, ideally, right? Sometimes that's the thing. Or sometimes you're just like, oh, I don't know, because both of them argued it so darn well. It may have swayed you or persuaded you. So it's very fun, very energetic. We used to have this in school, classes on debate. Versus a disagreement, which is pretty much the same idea. You're trying to persuade, you know, two or four on a topic, but it's super informal. And that's where a lot of our spaces come into play. We'll work with dancers, musicians, DJs, clients, other peers, and in this space of business, there is a lot of natural disagreement, right?
There's a lot of room. I actually, looked up, disagreement, and the words I like better are disharmony or misunderstanding. Disharmony, you can get back into harmony, right? So that's the whole, I think that's like a better way to approach it personally. So disharmony, and there's a lot of room for misunderstandings when you work with, like you said, clients and other artists, and it's also like a creative, passionate field.
Yes.
So you have that fine line of, like passion and ego, like we need our ego to do what we do. But when we need to shelf the ego and like run our business, or
Yeah, that's often a very popular point or topic of disagreement is business, ethics, etc. Because we're humans and we come from different cultures and backgrounds and experiences, and we often forget that not everyone shares that exact same mixture. And so that can cause a lot of, like, what I think are softer issues, but they can turn really big. So I'd love to have a little bit of story time and ask you if there's been a time where you can share, but of course no names or anything like that, but a disagreement that became probably more disrespectful than it should have.
I was I was like thinking on this. Obviously, I'm kind of generalizing, overreaching my like 16 plus year career. Um, and most of the disagreements I would say that have become disrespectful, I was noticing were with people that I considered friends or colleagues or people that, you know, I've had a relationship with, or, and I thought that was kind of interesting because I think um, when you when we work with certain people or we think people are friends, it leaves a lot of room for maybe emotion that when you try to then express the line beyond friendship or the fun stuff, right? The fluffy stuff, the creative stuff. And then you start to talk about like a disagreement or a money issue or a business issue or, you know, critique or advice. Then all of a sudden, the any bit of professionalism kind of goes out the window somehow when it's like someone who is a friend, which I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. Um,
Good point.
I, I think overall, I get along pretty good with people. I'm a big observer and I kind of let people do their own thing. I think we have that in common, which is why we get along well. But I've definitely been called judgmental and aggressive and pushy. Um, but again, I think it's mostly by friends or people that I thought were friends
Yeah.
and with trying to like clear up issues. Um, yeah, I would say that was, as I was like kind of scrolling through my mind, that was like a point that I wanted to make is a lot of times we're letting emotions get involved when it's too familiar. Like, what's the line of familiarity and fun and professionalism? Which,
Yeah.
yeah,
The boundaries definitely have to be established, and kind of each person has a different maybe definition of that even for themselves. You know, that always changes. I know
yeah,
personally, I very similar sentiment, the boundary of when something personal and then it goes into the topic of business, especially when I feel excited, I'm all about business. You know, my
hmm,
business, it's my business, I run it like a business. That is how it rolls. I come from that field. So, but I'm also very, very, very comfortable with disagreeing with people. I'm always open. I'm like, if you prove me wrong, please. I'm like, okay, woohoo. I mean, I'm not gonna be like, you told her, I told. No, like it's like with your partner, your husband, your wife, your siblings, your friends. Like, it's good if you disagree. Like, it means you have some strength to, some oomph to your
right.
thoughts. And it's just how you disagree, I think, is the
But I
art.
think that's a good point is that people don't surround themselves with enough people who push back or disagree. A lot of us are not just performers, but we're teachers and we're in a leadership position. And
Mhm.
much of the time where people are looking to us for advice and it can become like this addictive thing to get the feedback of like, oh my god, you're such an amazing performer, oh my god, you're such an amazing teacher, and like everything comes out of your mouth is like a golden, you know, egg.
Yeah.
And um and that I think when you it that was the, if you're just surrounding yourself with like people who are not as successful as you or don't have a different point of view of you, that's when I think there tend to be some issues and some pushback if you do have a person that's very laid back. Like I think you and I are very friendly and laid back, and then all of a sudden, like boom, we have these very strong opinions
Hmm.
and and again very direct about voicing them, like if and when it comes up. Right, we're not like sugarcoating around it, even though our style of communication is very different. I didn't have the debate in school. I was homeschooled. I didn't go to, I didn't start in business. I have had this creative career the whole time, but we're still just very similar in the fact that like when it comes up and if it comes up, we're going to say it because we just want to get it out of the way. Right.
Yeah, talk about
Um, so I think What I've seen is just a lot of people only surrounded by like students and clients that are really not going to give you any like critique or pushback.
Hmm.
And
And
then it
social
becomes like,
media mimics that, where the algorithm is literally surrounding you with the things that you do
right,
like are comfy, cozy. So how are you going
you
to
can
be?
find any point of
Yeah,
view, whatever point of view you have, somebody's spouting that and you can, you can
yeah,
find it.
yeah. I literally have, I used to run this group that was about like business and pricing in our area. And so one of the things that I noticed is I would listen. I would be like, I'm not choosing a side. I will hear each dancer that is arguing in our community. I will also present other people to chat with them about what's going on and give their perspective, and would never pick a side. I mean, I heard, oh my gosh, women, especially because we're such a women dominated industry, at least in belly dance, so much trauma, often a lot of fear, a lot of assuming how the other person would feel, and sometimes I think that there's those moments where, as a neutral party, I would say, where was the empathy? Like adding the empathy to each side. Hey, this person actually experienced this, and this is why they're reacting this way. Oh, this person, attacked in this way because they thought that this thing that you said, they heard it in this way, and but actually, you're both good people at the end of the day, probably. Like, I don't even know some of the people like deeply, right? But you have to kind of
Probably.
assume the best. Like, usually it was a lot of assumptions or a lot of projections of their own hurt and pain from things that are like very deep and have been going on for a long time. It
That has
becomes like,
nothing to do with the issue at hand, probably.
no, the root issue is often, to me, pretty clear. But when you're in the moment and you have people, especially, like, we're all human, we're in the heat in the moment, you either let that cloud you, or you need to take a step back or a pause, or you can just somehow maintain that through practice and maintain that clarity and that tone and get to like, okay, this is what I think, but I respect and I see your side.
Right.
I understand where you're coming from. Okay,
Or
maybe
I
I'll.
don't see your side and I don't respect it, but let's agree to disagree and move on because it's not like
Yeah,
life or death problem.
yeah. Good to, like, sometimes the best things, and I've learned this even in project management courses, sometimes the best solution is to not meet in the middle, or to be like, yes, it's that one. Sometimes it's like, nope, there is okay to not have an agreed upon solution.
Right.
And that's sometimes the best thing for like a project or a task, or like with people leading teams, whatever. You just have to say, no, this isn't going to work. And we just have to all be like, nope, we're not going to move forward with this thing,
And
you
I
know?
think that's a very valid point because with this community or camaraderie, you don't really have to work with everyone. You just have to be respectful to everyone. It's like if you choose to not be on board with a certain way of handling a business or someone's rates or someone chooses to, do XYZ that you don't agree with, I think there needs to be more of, okay, like, I don't agree. We're not going to move forward together, but like, also, I'm not going to demonize you and talk shit about you like you're a horrible person or
Yeah,
like you hurt me. It was just, we just didn't agree on this. And I think all of a sudden, and again, I'm more of an observer too. I think all of a sudden it kind of becomes where people make decisions that are not cool. Like, you're not wrong for disagreeing. You're not wrong for the misunderstanding, but a lot of times the actions after the fact,
yeah,
based on heightened emotions, then you become like disloyal, then you start gossiping about a person, then you start like demonizing this whole person's character over like, belly dance rate. Like, you don't have to work with everybody. Like, it's okay
yeah,
if you just, I don't agree with you, so let's not move forward together, but I wish you everything you deserve. Right?
yeah.
Like,
I think that's
period.
such an amazing point. Like, you hit it on the head. You can totally disagree on XYZ thing, but that doesn't mean that the whole person is bad just because you don't agree, or that everything they did up to that point is dismissed, or everything they've achieved is somehow no longer valid.
Right.
Think about any deep relationship you've had for many years, right? Like, you will disagree and argue with that person. That is okay, but it's like, Are you going to, like in the case of the spouses, are you going to be screaming at each other every single day and, wanting to just jump off a cliff? Or are you going to find a way to resolve, maintain composure,
Yeah.
get better at listening and disagreeing so it doesn't escalate?
And some people bring the worst out in you. And I think it's very, very important to know when to walk away from a relationship respectfully before it gets to the point where you're like doing shady stuff. Like speaking of, relationships, my stance on that, because again, I started reflecting and thinking like, well, most of the disrespectful disagreements I've had have been with people that I consider friends or that I love, right? Because I'm very laid back and an observer. If I'm giving you a critique or any advice that comes across like a disagreement, like I don't agree with this, and I'm giving you the reasons why, it's because I probably like you, love you, care about you, or want you to do better. If I didn't, you wouldn't probably even hear my opinion, right? Because I'm not going to give that energy to a person I don't care about. And it hit me that in my opinion, if you're constantly having the same disagreements or misunderstandings, or there's constant disharmony, you need to, if that person doesn't either respect you, they don't, there's not, mutual respect, they don't like you or love you, which is valid. There might just be gaining something from the relationship, or they're so unhealed and it's so triggering for them that they literally just can't. And um, and again, any of those situations are fine, but not our responsibility. I think for me, it's mostly about like being, discernment in where you're going to place your disagreements, because otherwise you're kind of wasting your time. Let it go. They don't
Yes,
want to hear it from you.
that's very true. Which kind of brings us into the next topic of, and again, I will get juicy with some stories by the end, but ways to de-escalate. I mean, it's crazy. Like, we'll go to school, you go to college, you'll be in the workplace, but no one's really teaching, unless if you're in a specific job where you have to learn it, like the art of de-escalating arguments, the art of not even letting it escalate is like a
Yeah.
thing, especially
But I
like in
mean,
roles of
like
leadership.
our political leaders can't even do that. So it's literally not.
Imagine. But there are really a lot of amazing people that
Yeah,
do this. Either they've learned naturally on their own, just leading people, teams, their family, whatever it may be, a herd of sheep, I don't know, or they've learned it through the workplace. They've done therapy, they learned it from a mentor. There are ways to actually just get situations down. And again, there's many
yeah.
options. So I'm going to name a few, and feel free to like poke some in there too. So basically, disagreeing in a healthy manner 101. I think that the first thing, ideally, is listen actively. I can't tell you how many times I see people argue, but they're not listening. It'll be like two employees, because I used to manage a bunch of people, two employees or two dancers. I've had like two really close dancers, beautiful people, but they were not listening and arguing. And I was like, you guys are too good. I know both of you bitches are really awesome. Quit it. Listen to each other, because we both care about each other and you're both good. Like, actually listen. It's very hard to do, to be silent and listen, especially with so much going on, but it is worth the practice. If it can happen, that's going to be so beneficial in your relationships. Another one that I have here is being mindful of tone. Tone is epic. And tone, unfortunately, does not convey that well in the written word. So that's why I pretty much stay off of certain topics on social media. I will not talk about sex, drugs, nor religion on social media. I just don't, because the tone does not convey. But if you are in person in Zoom, in a class, in a, I don't know, talking to a DJ, trying to keep your composure with them, um, tone is pretty big. You can say the same thing, hi, how are you? And hi, how are you? And it's gonna be completely different. What's next on my list here? Yeah.
Yeah.
The art of remaining calm.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna, on that last one, my just overreaching end all be all, because there's of course there's many ways to try to de-escalate and keep it calm and, like you said, tone and everything like that. But I am going to put it from the point of it is a choice, right? It is only thing we can control is ourselves. Um, you can be the nicest, most professional, de-escalating, like, you know what I mean? Because I don't come from the same like business background, but this is literally from like observation and experience, and holding myself to the same like criticism and self-reflection, right? Of like, could I have said that different? Could I have done this different? Sometimes you can't. Like, sometimes you're going to offend a person. They don't want to hear it. I think it's everybody's responsibility to self-reflect on, am I being a good communicator? Am I being a receptive, active listener? So everything you said, right, being an active listener, staying calm. But again, if it's one-sided,
Yeah, it's like talking to a
all for naught. And I think that goes way back again to just like discernment. Like, um, the difficult conversations are very important to have, whether they're going to go good or not. That's to me. Like, I understand, like, tone and whatever. I think what happens is that because we get in so many like kind of crappy conversations or crappy interactions with people, we end up like avoiding. And I think we're both probably guilty of that. Like, we kind of keep to ourselves a little bit, and a lot of big opinions that we have, because it's like, well, this is not really worth you know what I mean? It's not worth it. But what I think that does is it leads people to like be like not trusting. Like, there's no trust. Like, we kind of stay on our own little islands. And I think it's a big self thing. Like, I would hope that anyone would get out of this. Check your tone, check your reflection, check your receptiveness. And because I feel like we are doing that. Like, that's why, we're sitting back and watching and saying like, wow, how can I not get offended by this? How can I not take this personally? And I think if more of us just had shitty and uncomfortable situations over and over again and then went back and felt shitty and felt uncomfortable about it, we would get all a lot better at like coming together, right? Because that's what we all like want. We want this like community thing. But it doesn't end up being productive, because the only people who are doing the work to communicate are the ones who are already doing the work to communicate. Like, we're the ones who are already like self-reflecting. So I think, for me personally, just pushing through and having the conversations, whether it's going to offend people or not, because it's honest, using tools like this, like having not just our own conversations, like, right, with ourselves, because we agree with each other on a lot of things, not everything. And then sharing it so that we can attract other people who need, right, this honesty. Because really, I think it boils down to like honesty and self-reflection. And to me, just doing it more, whether it works out or not, is the best way to just overreachingly have less disagreements, because there will be more honesty, right? Like,
I love
that's what
that.
we're missing. Nobody wants to freaking talk because everyone's afraid to get attacked, or, oh, my tone wasn't right, or they're going to take it the wrong way. Well, like, we should learn that in school. We should be learning that in kindergarten, how to like,
You think?
you know.
I love that. There's two pieces I want to bring out of what you said. Uh, One of them is, yes, being mindful. I just, all of that I just love. But there's also ways to know, like, what is the format, right? Like, what format should we probably have this disagreement on? There's a difference between people arguing on social media versus people arguing on the phone versus people arguing face to face. Like, there's these different levels of personal engagement that by nature will make you feel more committed, I think might be the word. Yeah, I'll use that word for now, commitment. So when you're arguing, on something like through a screen, like just text verbally, a text message or something, you know, you kind of have to, maybe in that sense of self-reflection, if we're going to argue about, did I have a cookie today? Okay, no big deal. You could argue over text, you know. But if it starts to get, well, this cookie, you know, signifies, I'm just making something really arbitrary. This cookie that you got and didn't offer me signifies that I've lost confidence in you and blah, 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 in your dance space, you know. We probably need to talk face to face. And if you're far, let's have a Zoom meeting. And if your internet is broke down today, then let's just get on a phone call. You know, like there's different levels that you can engage in versus what's comfortable. And so I would say growth comes from coming out of the comfort zone. And these arguments, disagreements, they can be really good. Like I enjoy a good argument, and I will usually just like watch and observe after a certain point, and I'll just like see what the person does. So the person can either, like you were mentioning, be a brick wall, and then I say, okay, no, we need some space, right? This isn't gonna go anywhere right now today. We need to take some time apart. Or the other person's super engaged, they're maintaining the composure, it's not escalating, but they're giving me their sides back, and vice versa, right? You, or maybe you as a person, a partner, a DJ, a dancer, a friend, a business colleague, etc. Right? If it can maintain its composure and respect, you continue the argument until whatever ABC is reached, right? And then sometimes it starts to escalate. And so that's why I'm like, de-escalation is wonderful. Taking a break, I guess. But you had this other thing that you said about, oh my gosh, how did you put it? I guess going back to how some people are just in a point where like they have their own ish going on. And so maybe they can't handle that right now. And I think that's why it's okay sometimes to be like, I'm going to leave this, or this person needs to leave this. Like they've maybe left. They're just mad and they go over rates or whatever it may be. You don't know why they've gotten so worked up, but you're like, okay, they need space. I think that there is kind of like a trend. Tell me what you think, where I'm seeing more of this in the generation and in teams and working with colleagues, where I'm seeing more people prefer to not have the argument because they don't want to open up a can of worms. But it's those same people that talk the most ish in the background. And so you have to wonder, like, we are humans. It needs to come out, but it should come out directly to the person. When you're,
well, it's because the intention, I think, is not growth. The intention is to scream into an echo chamber. They are sharing it, like you said, in situations and on platforms where the only people responding are going to be in agreement with them, are going to be kissing their ass. So the intention isn't growth there. And again, they get in a face-to-face and can't deal. They get on a whatever. And again, I've seen that honestly with every generation. I think the tools we have now allow us to really only surround ourselves in situations and things and opinions that will make us feel good. And then again, we're in the business of making people feel good too. So it's like such a fine line, right? Because it's like, you know, one point I really wanted to make is this conversation we're having is for professionals. If you are a hobbyist and you just are here to like have goddess vibes and like feel good and like celebrate and blah, blah, like that's a whole different conversation that I think that's a whole another live, right? Conversation where there's like this line, like, are you doing this just to feel good? Once you cross that line into professional, semi-professional, working hobbyist, you are taking on a responsibility, and it is now unacceptable for you to just be toxically positive all the time. But that's what we see. We see it's a lot of toxic positivity. Like, oh my God, I have to protect my peace. And then it's again screaming into the echo chamber. It's like, but what about growth? Like if your intention is growth, it's not comfortable all the time. Like, I mean, I know we want to all feel good a lot and we're in the business of bringing joy, but like, make it sustainable, make it productive, make it like, you know, I think I don't know, I had this thought about like, you know, I don't even remember all my thoughts, but it's like, we can be all of those things. Like they can both exist. Like the positivity and the support is not just comes from people calling each other out so that we maintain a positive growth environment, not a stagnant circle jerk,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So true. So true. Love
So,
it. Love it.
yeah, I know I'm not like the, clearly I didn't get any of my training on a professional corporate setting.
No, it doesn't matter. I've always said that it doesn't matter what. At the end of the day, it's about human beings.
Yeah,
So whether it's a formalized training or if it's just been like learning as you go, like they are all good. I think it's all good as long as you're growing.
yeah.
So as long as you're understanding, oh, communication, okay, we need to communicate clearer. I need to communicate more clearly. Okay, I need to listen better. Maybe my circle is not listening. Let me, think on this.
Like, why is this bothering me so much? Like, why do I want to run from this conversation? Why do I feel attacked? Like, I feel
Yeah.
like people don't question discomfort. They're just like, that's not good for my peace. And then they throw it away. Like, though, that is feedback. To,
Mm-hmm.
that is feedback for you. If you are feeling like pissed off, offended, stressed out, like around, especially around a certain topic, like,
Examine this.
examine it. It's feedback. It's information for you. It doesn't, that's going to help you grow. Whether it's saying, you know, I totally disagree. It triggers me because it makes me feel unsafe, and I think it is counterproductive. Like, like formula. I feel like when people start getting disrespectful in arguments and disagreements, it's because they're not very well thought through. Like, I definitely have had conversations with people where they are very like, this is the stance. And then, I'm a chronic overthinker. So I'm going to be like, well, this is my stance, and this, and this is why. And then all of a sudden it's like, shut down. You know what I mean? It's like, but like you said, I think earlier, it's like, okay, well, you know what? Let me think about that. Like, I haven't thought about it that way, and I don't really agree, but let me think about it and revisit it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If someone comes with an argument that is triggering to me, or makes me think, or makes me like, right, then you can just say, like, you know what? I don't know if I agree. Let me think. You don't have to respond right away. I think that's another tool that we just don't use, is leaving and coming back, because once we have that uncomfortable situation, we tend to avoid, right? Then all of a sudden you're ghosted.
Yeah.
So it's like,
There's so much gray in between than just like, I'm right, this is wrong. Like, there's so much gray. And I think the gray is where that's the good part. G and G. Good. Great. Like, it doesn't have to be one or the other.
uh,
I will say, working with lots of people, and I am always learning, but 99% when someone has a problem, that's not the root problem.
for sure.
I'll say that again. 99% for all our listeners of the time that someone has a problem, that is not the root issue. For example, like someone will say, oh, I'll just bring it back to race because it's just always about race most of the time, or like a DJ. Oh, so and so,
Trauma.
I think you're undercutting, right? All the time. Think you're undercutting. Okay. Because of X, Y, Z. Oh, okay. And so then you go into, okay, usually X, Y, and Z is, one of them is usually an assumption. The person assumed that you were doing the thing that they think you're undercutting for. Two, right? Because I hear this all the time for years, and I'm always on a lot of these discussions. Or it'll be, hi, oh, I love everyone joining. It'll be where B situation. Okay, someone calls something out, and you're like, damn, I didn't realize that was actually something that could be thought of as, in this topic that I'm making up, undercutting, right? Or C, nope, that's totally not undercutting. Are you open to understanding why this thing is actually happening, right? So I find that almost always someone raising the concern is valid. I listen. It came from somewhere. A lot of times it's like a lot of their own projections. A lot of project, and yeah, for sure. Like sometimes it could be the person doing something, but maybe they didn't mean to do it. Or if they did, they had a different reason that they never would have even thought it was the thing that triggered you. Like there's so many ways that this can go with just disagreeing.
But
And I
the
think it also,
reaction after, if they want to continue to do it, they are going to find a way to misunderstand you, right? You're trying to hold them back. You're judgmental. You're stuck up. You're not being supportive to women. Like, well, you're not being a team player. Any way that they can find to misunderstand you, a lot of times just comes from the fact that they want to keep doing what they're doing. And I will say also, discussions around money are so difficult as artists because of a fear-based and a limited resources-based thought process. Um, there's a range. Like, right, there's not like, oh, everyone has to charge as much. Like, I actually prefer my prices to be higher because I feel like I am not entry level and I am at XYZ range. Like, but there should still be a respectful range, right?
respectful,
And
right?
I
Yeah.
think if you're thinking limited resources and you're fear-based and you really just want to do this, or you don't really care and it's kind of just a hobby and you just make extra money, you're just paying for classes, all of a sudden you're discarding this responsibility that you've picked up by entering the professional space. Not that everyone needs to have a full-time job with it or whatever, but I think people don't want the responsibility, so they're going to find a way to misunderstand you. Still, you're right. Sorry, some things are just right. I mean, there has to be a level, a range, a something. And even if you say, you know what, I really understand where you're coming from, but I disagree. I want to do XYZ because this is how I sell and it's easier for me to sell at this rate. I would respect that more than all of a sudden this person is a tyrant, she doesn't support women, and she's a judgmental bitch and you're stuck up. Like, you know what I mean? Which are the feedback that we're getting. Like, what do you think, you're a lawyer? Like, just all kind of disrespect coming from the fact that just own what you want to do. But people also want to be good people and they want to be like community leaders, but it's like they just want to do what they want to do. I would rather someone just say, I understand, but I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Period. Like, own it, own it. You know what I mean? Don't get like defensive because you don't want to change. Just say, fuck you, I'm going to keep doing this. And I would feel like, okay. To me, that's still the end of, that's the end. I can't go further past that. But if then you start bad mouthing and bashing, that's when I think the level changes from a disagreement to disrespect. Like, just own your choice.
Yes, which is
Uh,
perfect way to kind of wrap that of like, when does it become disrespect? So obviously you've named some of bad mouthing people behind their back. So anything that isn't directly to the person. One, you said it great. Anything with disrespect, basically, when it escalates to the point where they are doing, saying, physically acting in a way that harms you, that's a big breaking point, whatever that may be, whatever level. And so we are human. We're going to make mistakes, but we need to own up for those mistakes. So if I messed up and I was like, damn, I shouldn't have raised my voice, or dang, I didn't realize it was this, it should reflect, come back and say, my bad. I did this wrong, but now I learned. Thank you for caring enough to say something. I'm going to do better. Thanks for bringing this to my attention. I still disagree, but thank you for bringing it to my attention. After thinking about it, okay, I'm going to settle this way. Okay,
right. I
but
could have handled this differently. Like,
yeah,
you know, I think and that's why, to me, my overreaching like opinion on what tips it over from a disagreement to disrespect is like standing 10 toes down in your wrongness. Like, if you are not willing to own up to maybe being able to grow from the situation and you start demonizing a person, you start bad mouthing a person, you start acting like a victim, you blame people and get defensive, and you have no receipts to back up your stance, to me, that all of a sudden is now you're not just disrespecting the other person, but again, it is harmful for the community, right, that we all care so much about, because it is breeding a dishonest discourse of disharmony. It's my little alliteration for the day, but it's just not productive. We have to be able to, like you said, whether you agree or not, we have to be able to move forward without like harming the community. There can be people with different point of views and opinions. Own your shit, and and be confident. And then I think people don't end up gaslighting and being mean and petty because it's the business.
Yeah.
And if it's not a business, it's a hobby, and there's really not place for the toxic sensitivity and like the victim, I'm a victim and they just bullied me and I had no choice and it was just they don't support me. It's like no one cares, girl. Like everyone's trying to survive, everyone's trying to do their own thing. Like it's usually not about you.
Hmm.
And so it's our choice. And if we can try to be better communicators overall and take things less personally overall and be more honest overall, even if we have to revisit it and say, hey, you know what, I really feel like that didn't come across right, and owning it and apologizing, like it's more work, but that's what's going to be leading us forward as a community.
Big time. Yes. Where did I to? If you guys have been listening, by the way, because we're wrapping it up in about 18 minutes, I'm always by the clock. Make sure you place any comments in here, anything you want to ask, just because we want to make sure we have time. So go ahead and drop them in, and we can read them off as they come in. I think one of the last things I wanted to get your opinion on is in this industry that we're in, and there's so many different ways of doing this business and choosing your own path in this business. Something that's always been interesting for me is that, it is a business that's pretty female led, right? And we're always like, yes, empowerment, well, all these things, but there's a lot of pettiness and growth too, as we've been discussing, that needs to occur for things to get better. I never have these issues in places where I've worked ever, in multiple places with men. I don't. We talk about money openly with my male coworkers, especially back in the day, because now I own my own company. No problems. We'll disagree, but we'll talk openly about money. We'll talk openly about tactics. We'll talk openly and share about like some crazy stories and some great stories. And I don't have as many issues in those settings. It is very, to me, what has always been like, whoa, is that it is with this very female kind of centered industry. And so what I do want to kind of say as a message, and let me know if your experience has been the same, but it's like, it is hard enough to be a woman. And I think of Esmeralda when she's like, it's hard enough to be a woman, so be kind to each other. Like, just try to have some empathy, grow, listen. We are dealing with enough stuff. So just try to not assume and attack before listening. And we'll just have a much better.
We disagree on that because I don't think it's a female male thing as much as it is maybe an artist and creative industry thing. I have had many issues with male owners, male musicians, male DJs,
Oh,
male artists in general. I haven't personally worked in a corporate setting, so to speak, but with my Pilates and teaching in gyms and working in gyms,
sure.
I think that's another creative, independent contractor based uh, industry. And I have seen pettiness from men, like literally talking shit to their students. So this person doesn't get hired because they don't want their students to like other people, like men. You know what I mean? So I think it's more maybe it's more of a lack of training, lack of education in that area. Maybe it is a more passion-led crazy person business, which we are. We are, artsy people are very passion-led, and also a fear-based, scarcity mindset-based business, right? There is in our minds scarcity and this trope of the starving artist, so we have to fight for like our spot. So I feel like it would be, my opinion would be more, those would be the issues in creative businesses, because again, I work in teaching in gyms and studios and client-based work, and performing. So I have seen and had issues with, I would say, both equally, especially because a lot of times the men literally don't respect you when you talk to them about money in a sequin bra and like eyelashes. So
Yeah, those are also really good points too. I think it's maybe a little bit of everything, honestly. In my experience, I don't have to work with males too often unless it's the DJ or the venue owners when I had venues. Some of them were awesome, some of them were terrible. Still, I struggle with DJs, as I'm alluding to throughout this thing. But that's true.
Your trauma, that's your trauma. I think for all of us. That's one thing we can all come together on is why can't we work together with DJs? Why the miscommunication with DJs?
But at the root, I think it's the education. That might be the
Maybe.
nail on the head. The education is just how can we spread the message of let's be mindful of communication, get growing in our communication style, being open to communication in the
Right.
first place.
Well, we're all taking a thousand, dance classes. We're all taking a ton of dance classes, whatever level we're at. So from hobbyist to professional, there's really not availability of, and I think we've talked about this, and maybe that can segue into like upcoming stuff because I think personally, I want to use the tool of sharing my opinions to a broader audience or just recording it so that whoever, wants to maybe resonates, maybe gets triggered, maybe agrees, can kind of see that and we build community that way. So using social media, kind of as a tool to offer something that's really not offered, like we're all trained in dance, we're all learning about music, we're all, fighting amongst ourselves about everything. Like in anything, like you said, it could be a cookie, and you didn't get part of the cookie, and like it could literally be anything that we've seen. And I think we're all like burned out and exhausted. So I would love, and I love these kind of conversations. Again, we work together more recently and have these kind of conversations all the time. But I think it is important because we don't have that education. Like I came to you for help with things that you're good at because, like, wow, you're really good at this thing that I'm not good at, and you're not judgmental about it. And again, it's like, but I have something I can offer you is this, and so we're able to like communicate in our own languages and still understand each other,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which is I think what we struggle with. It's like everybody's just coming from their lived experience and very raw and triggered about it and like not educated in a way to handle it. So maybe that is more of the the
Message.
separation, the conflict.
I'm going to read a few comments from our peeps that are on the live. So Noor, hi Noor. Oh, I miss you. She said, yes, self-reflection is very important. Very agreed. And again, if you guys have any questions or things to share, we have some time. Joyce, hola. Yes, we should understand more about each other. I always like to know a person and their story better before judging. That would always be the ideal, and hopefully the more that the message spreads with every dancer and everyone has that empathy and patience that can get there more and more. To start with, we are not judged at all. People change throughout life all the time. Okay, people change in life all the time, so we're like not stagnant. We're always changing. Men, they naturally want to be better than us. It's Mother Nature. I just stay close. What I can handle, what I cannot, then yalla bye. Okay, what you can handle, and then there's what you can't handle, and then if you can't handle it, she goes. Okay, I see. Who else? Let's see here. Oh, hey, Allison. Oh my goodness, I love it. I love it. I love it. So yeah, any questions, drop them if you have any. Tell me about any sort of upcoming projects that you have and our last moments, Miss Ciana. Anything going on that our viewers should know about?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think just like what we're talking, like more things like this where we're just kind of open up discourse, share more, talk more about what we know, and offer different points of view.
Mm-hmm.
And I am definitely going to be coming forward a little bit more with like the movement and the mindset part of
Yeah.
what I do. Yeah, so some of my movement classes will be coming up September. I'm going to open up like consultations, so and some free classes. So keep an eye out for that, and then also just talking some more, having some more difficult conversations, and hoping to lead that into like productive growth for the community.
I love it. Yes, for sure. That's going to be kind of the projects as well, guys. So for all of you that have listened to this live, can continue to do these minimum quarterly, but I would hope for monthly. Make sure that we invite guests onto here so we could talk about different topics, see where we disagree, agree on them, where we grow, where we learn, where does it go? I think that's always great. So if you have any suggestions, feel free. I do have little lists going on, but I love seeing what other people have. There's always some really great ideas out there. And working on that, performing a lot, and working on this hip, which Miss Ciana has been helping me with. So trying to get more mobile.
It's a great partnership. I very much enjoy working with you. You're a strong and dedicated mover. So
Thank you. I try. She kicks my butt, y'all. Um, other than that, let me see. Oh, I love you too. Thank you everyone for listening. You can catch Ciana on her page, Ciana Ariel. You can find her on her Instagram, her Facebook. She's all around. So if you've only known her as the belly dancer, she is also a movement coach and Pilates maniac. So definitely reach out to her. And if you have any questions or anything at all, you can reach out to either of us. We're happy to chat more and share more stories. And at the end of the day, if you see someone that you care about or someone you don't even know, speak your truth, be respectful. Hopefully they will reflect the same. And if they don't, use some of those techniques to try to de-escalate the situation and try to make for a better world, little by little. So thanks, y'all. I hope you have a great day. And thank you so much, Ciana. I appreciate it.
I'm glad we did this. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Ciao.